everywhere. GBS.
Speaking of strategic depth, the United States has been struggling on this front when it comes to China. So they dispatched their latest emissary to manage ties. As Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited China recently, it was a 3-day visit which had two stops, Beijing and Shanghai. A meeting with Xi Jinping also expected, though with no much expectation of pleasant conversations, because China seemed to be ready with long list of complaints which started with Taiwan. And what is China protesting about? Good afternoon. This is the ambassador. With me, your ambassador, Jennifer Macau. Now, as we continue with our story, China versus America. What is China protesting about? Let's listen in.
We resolutely oppose it. We urge the United States to take concrete actions to honor its commitment and to not support Taiwan's independence and to stop arming Taiwan in any way.
A spending bill, that is, U.S. lawmakers passed it, and it was passed just before Blinken landed in China. And what does this bill say? The U.S. is giving military aid to Taiwan, $8 billion of it. Obviously, Beijing does not like it. Then there is the TikTok, the Chinese app. Washington may also ban it. And there's also a threatening sanction Chinese banks over their business ties with Russia. So a lot of flashpoints. Blinken is set to visit a Provo bill, firing squad, and China is combative and aggressive. 2 days ago, before Blinken's arrival, they released this video. The Chinese released their video showing off their nuclear power. And this video features a Chinese nuclear submarine firing a ballistic missile on the high seas. And what kind of missile was this? It is called the JL-2, and China had built on the year 2019. And the US sees it as a threat because of its range. And if it is deployed in the right location of the Pacific, this Chinese missile can target the US. It can target the entire western half of America, including the high-profile targets like Hawaii and Alaska. Now, we don't know if this was the reason for the test or if China is just using an old video here. But the message they are trying to convey is quite clear. China is reminding America about its strike capabilities. Blinken may have seen this coming because early this week, he had a message of his own. Let's listen.
When it comes to Russia's defense industrial base, the primary contributor in this moment to that is China. We see China sharing machine tools, semiconductors, other dual-use items that have helped Russia rebuild the defense industrial base.
You see the argument that is putting forth. China is helping Russia fight the war in Ukraine, and that is America's charge and plans to bring during the visit. What else is on the agenda? China military activities, particularly the drones near Taiwan and the South China Sea. Blinken's plan was to raise both issues when he met with their counterpart, Wang Yi, last Friday. Reports stated that the meeting could last up to 6 hours, and in the run-up of the meeting, both sides were witnessed talking at each other. No much positive outcome was expected, let alone a breakthrough, which has been the case for the better part of the last 3 years, because for any diplomatic initiative to succeed, common ground is required. But when it comes to US and China, there is a little they have to agree on, and on the key issues they have made their differences. And in the Indo-Pacific, for example, the US and China are on the opposite side. On trade, China accuses America of slapping restrictions, while America complains about Chinese oversupply, and this is impacting their overall relationship. According to a survey that came out last year, featured American companies concerning the US ties, and 46% of these companies stated the relationship were deteriorating. And they were right. American investments in China are shrinking, and there's a little to suggest that will bring the look up time soon, especially with the 8th presidential elections that is approaching. This is going to be more than rhetoric and hardening of positions to suit political purposes. And both Democrats and the Republican want to look tough on China. Biden faces a difficult rematch against Donald Trump, and Trump is known for his China hawk. And Biden cannot afford to look soft or to appease China at this stage, especially more tough talk. The US president liked to say that America are in competition with each other with China. But from the look of this competition has turned into confrontation, and no side can afford to pull their punches low. The president of Kenya, William Ruto, took a first-hand look at the devastation caused by the floods as he visited Kamuchiri village earlier on Tuesday, located in the northwest of Nairobi, which was hard hit by the flood waves after the river breached its banks, resulting in a tragic loss of lives. President Ruto's visit came amidst a forecast predicting of a further increase in seasonal rains, heightening the risk of more floods and landslides. The cabinet likewise issued an urgent evacuation order for the residents in the areas prone to the flooding or the landslides, as well as those residing near the water bodies considered at a high risk. The death toll has continued to rise, with at least 179 already confirmed dead and many more injured. In response, the Kenyan government, in collaboration with the development partners, pleaded to provide shelter, food, and other necessary assistance to those affected by the floods.
Everyone living on the riparian zones should vacate in Nairobi and all over the country because we do not want to keep losing the lives of our citizens. We will put in place adequate plans to feed them, shelter them, and provide all the necessary requirements. We decided this in Cabinet today, and the government will work with development partners on this undertaking. I know you have lost your children. Up to now, 48 bodies of children, women and men have been retrieved from here. Even though most of the about 100 people that were in hospitals have been treated and discharged, we still have about 26 people admitted.
Kuna watu bado wako hospitalini.
Well, our hearts go out to the families, and we pray that they are comforted at this time of need. Now, moving on, Kenya flag carrier on Monday stated it was halting flights to the Democratic Republic of Congo, objecting the detention of its staff by the military in Kinshasa. The airline supported in a statement that through its employees in detention, it was unable to support flights in and out of Kinshasa, the capital of the DRC Congo. According to Kenya Airways, the two employees who are based at the airline's airport office were arrested nearly 2 weeks ago on accusations of failing to produce documentation for sensitive cargo. There has been no word from the Congolese government on the matter, though Kenya Airways CEO Alan Kilavuka alleged that last week the airline had not accepted the flight to the cargo, whose content had not been specified. Due to the lack of documentation, the carrier called the documentation the employees unlawful, while the head of the Kenyan Parliament Committee on the Defense termed the incident as a serious violation on the rights of the detained workers and the breach of diplomatic order. Haiti's newly installed Transitional Council chose a little-known former sports minister as the Caribbean country's prime minister on Tuesday, and as a part of the monumental task of trying to establish a stable new government within the stifling violence. Fritz Balazier was chosen in a surprise move to replace the current interim prime minister, Michel Pratik-Boisvert, gaining the support of the 4 of the 7 voting members on the 9-member panel. However, the decision raised eyebrows as some of the council members admitted they were unfamiliar with Balazier, who was not present during the announcement. Following the declaration, the council convened behind closed doors to discuss potential cabinet appointments, with no discussions expected to be made up on public on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Haiti continues to grapple with the widespread of violence, with the capital under the siege since coordinated gang attacked in February 29. The gang targeted the police stations, the international airports and prisons, exacerbating more on the country's security crisis. Despite the appointment of a transitional government, opinions among the Haitians still remain divided on whether it can bring stability to the troubled nation.
The important thing for us is that this shows the determination to go beyond divisions, to overcome conflict and reach a consensus.
Well, we wish all the best for Haiti. Now, moving on. Jordan King Abdullah II met with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at Hussein Palace in Amman to discuss efforts towards achieving a ceasefire in Gaza and expanding humanitarian aid to the region. During the meeting, the King Abdullah stressed on the urgent need to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and protect civilians, emphasizing on the importance of sustained delivery humanitarian relief and medical through all available channels. Later, Blinken visited Israel and met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss the ongoing negotiations on a temporary ceasefire and the release of hostages held in Gaza. Israel has proposed a 40-day truce, including the release of hostages and allowing displaced families to return to their northern part of Gaza. Hamas, while calling for a permanent ceasefire, was as well considering Israel's proposal at the time of the reporting. Listen in.
I don't know if you know which date line you are and which hour of the day you are.
I was hoping you could tell me.
I know you're traveling all over the world. I saw your interview at the World Economic Forum in Riyadh, and I want to thank you for the strong support and the moral clarity in what you've said regarding the initiation of this terrible situation, the war that was waged upon us, the atrocities, as well as, of course, the plight of the hostages. We yearn for the immediate return of the hostages. It is to have a world order that pursues peace and pursues the values and norms that we all believe in the modern world, especially, I mean, the efforts done through the International Criminal Court. Israel has a very strong legal system, a very strong adjudication and law enforcement system, and it has pursued legal steps from the highest authorities in this land to any other citizen. We're very proud of it, and the rule of international law regarding complementarity is a basic world norm, and therefore trying to use the International Criminal Court against Israel, which is fighting terror,
to bring the hostages home to their families. At the same time, even as we're working with relentless determination to get the ceasefire that brings the hostages home, we also have to be focused on people in Gaza who are suffering in this crossfire Hamas is making. And so the focus on getting them the assistance they need, the food, the medicine, the water, the shelter, is also very much on our minds and in the work that we're doing. I look forward to discussing all of that with you and many more things as well. Thanks for seeing me again this morning.
We hope that ceasefire truce deal works, and that international news brings us to our first break. There is more coming up for you. Next, we'll talk about Niger migration hub to Europe, a situation, and the Mexico-Ecuador ICJ case over the embassy raid, and the rescued Netherlands lions, and the Coke attack eco-friendly pest control innovation. We'll bring you all this as you keep it at the Ambassador. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. Stay tuned with us.
Hi guys, welcome again to yet another amazing episode of the You Have Show that gets recorded.
As unaamka asubuhi unapata na sufuria yako ngara juu. It's not easy. Imagine kwa no one person can do this. Sipoko bedeni ule God mmoja tunaosha atakuja kusaidia.
kwenda hivi naona kaona niaje nyinyi abiria lakini kidogo bae
acha niruke.
Kaamua.
unaona
Haikuwa siku na abiria alikuwa hapo ndani akasema aanze kumwambia CSKL mkuu
Na si
amesimpa
it's
ku.
not the first the only person.
Mambo gani?
Kuna mingi
I think alikuwa very vulgar. Venye jamaa ndio yake kibebo. Kuna venye tu aliongea akamchekelea stage nilikwambia.
nilikwambia na usikii.
ya pale hivyo isipe.
Yes. So weka simu chini.
Ni mauma nje.
There is no animal that produces.
Iko walai Google hapo. Hadi kama flamingo ni
Hiyo
pink.
tunaenda kufanya homework.
Unafanya
Just to be clear. Napenda kuchallenge watu kama hao. Sasa najichallenge mimi mwenyewe jisikii.
Saizi ni ile time CSKL mkuu ataswim paku.
Tasimpa.
Unaget?
That is kind of joke swim.
Exactly.
Different kidogo lakini naona hiyo. Lakini inatoaje nini hapo?
makes sense.
Kila mtu anaishi maisha on a different level. Au nyumba zao ni mabati. Sasa hiyo mabati pia inaenda ambao ishakuliwa na imeenda. Hiyo kitu hizi floods zikaisha inaweza kuwa grao moja safi tunaweka tena stage.
Unapanda hadi mahindi.
Tunaweka.
Nakwambia kuna floods zitaisha kuna mtu mahindi zitakuwa zinamea kwa nyumba juu kuna cereal shop ilioshwa mahindi maragwe. So mvua itaisha mvune tu mahindi. But anyway.
Everywhere. GBS.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Ambassador, GBS Global, and we are glad to have you join us today. Now, as we continue, since the ruling military junta withdrew the verdict banning the transport of the migrants and all the migrants-related activities in Niger in November 2023, Agadez has once again become a bustling hub for migration. The town situated in the northern Niger is currently witnessing a resurgence in the migrant smuggling, with the transport square teeming with the arrivals and the departures. Here is more.
Agadez Public Transport Square has sprung back to life since the lifting of the ban on migrant transport in Niger by the ruling military junta in November 2023. In the northern town of Agadez, convoys of migrants now depart on Tuesdays and Thursdays, bound for Libya or Algeria, Niger's neighboring countries, and the last stop before the perilous journey across the Mediterranean to Europe.
One, because of the desert, the cold, and the weather and everything. But I'm not still afraid to go.
Since Agadez reopening, an estimated 5,000 migrants have already traversed the city to Libya and Algeria, hoping to reach Europe.
My aim, once I get to Europe, is to join the French army because I want to go to France, as I was a soldier in Senegal. I prefer to continue my service when I get to Europe. Since the reopening of Agadez, at least 5,000 migrants have...
However, analysts caution that unlike the large influx of migrants to Libya from Niger in 2015, migrants today face significantly greater obstacles.
They face a lot of risks of arrests and detention, risks of expulsions from Algeria. So there's still a lot of factors that are continue to impede the movement of migrants further north.
Since the start of the year, Alarm from Sahara has documented at least 9,000 migrants who have been turned back from Algeria to Niger.
Back migrants. We have listed around 9,000 people who have been refouled from Algeria for Niger since the beginning of the year until this April. Niger holds a...
In a significant escalation of diplomatic tensions, Mexico filed a lawsuit against Ecuador at the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, over the recent raid on its embassy in Quito. The Mexican ambassador, Carmen Moreno Tascano, lodged a formal complaint alleging violations in the Vienna Convention on the diplomatic relations during the incident. The raid, which occurred in April 5th, came shortly after Mexico had granted asylum to the former vice president. We are talking of George Glass, prompting a swift and contentious response from Ecuador. The situation has exacerbated a long-standing strains between the two nations, dating back to the Glass seeking.
In its application and in the accompanying request, Mexico firmly asserts that the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations has been violated and expresses its concern that such violations may recur in the absence of provisional measures. Through this intervention, the representatives of the Mexican state will express the factual and legal grounds upon which this concern is based.
Your Excellencies, there are lines in international law which should not be crossed. Regrettably, the Republic of Ecuador has crossed them. The actions undertaken by Ecuador not only transgress the established boundaries of international law, but also have served a disconcerting precedent that reverberates across the international community. This orchestrated raid against the premises and diplomatic staff of Mexico poses a serious threat to the maintenance of international relations and is a cause of grave concern for the international community. The international community has lost confidence in Ecuador's commitment and capacity to honor its most basic obligations under international law.
Distinguished members of the court, we cannot go back in time and restore the status quo ante before the violent attack of April 5th on the Mexican mission. The damages suffered by our rights and interests thereby are irreparable. This is why we appeal to this court to issue the provisional measures requested in these proceedings in order to avoid further irreparable damages upon the rights of Mexico protected by the Vienna Convention.
This case is not only of concern for Mexico. 68 states and international organizations, both at the regional and universal level, have united to express solidarity with Mexico and their disapproval to Ecuador's actions.
Well, there seems to be more coming for this Israel-Gaza truce, and we are hoping for more better results. There are hopes, as Israel officials are also set to meet with their representatives in Cairo to discuss on a new ceasefire proposal in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the Egyptian security sources also indicated that they would return with a written response to the truce proposal. There has been more of this truce proposal coming from the US, of Jordan, and the world is looking forward for a positive response. So are we. Now, moving on, I have a tale for you. In the heartwarming tale, international rescue efforts, 2 lions once found half malnourished and abandoned in the streets of Cabs finally found their forever home at the Lions Rock Sanctuary in South Africa. Nicola and Vasilina, that is the name of the 2 courageous lions who had embarked on a journey of survival, resilience, and hope, were found in the streets of Montenegro and Ukraine, respectively. Through these majestic creatures being rescued by the Global Animal Welfare Organization, we are talking of the 4 paws. Listen in. That's Nicola and Vasilina for you. We hope they enjoy their new home. Now, moving on, there's innovative pest control methods that have been taking flight at the Cape Town Winery in the Low Wine Estate that has adopted a unique approach and enlisting the help of 1,600 Indian runner ducks to tackle the pests like snails and insects. Believing that relying on natural predators like ducks was not only a sustainable but also an enhanced the overall ecosystem through this innovative approach to the pest control and dedication to sustainability. The Low Wine Estate is now making high waves in the way of environmentally friendly winemaking practices. Listen in.
On Vergenoeg Farm, we are proudly regenerative farming. By regenerative, we also have the ducks that you will see. From the morning, the ducks will come from their shed, come at around about 9 a.m. They will come and stand by the manor house, where we'll be exposed to all the people that are coming to have breakfast and also visiting our tasting room so that they can see our soldiers of the farm that we use for pest control to the vineyards. And then all the way they will go to the vineyards to do their work, and then in the afternoon at around 12, that's where they come back from their work again from the vineyard. This goes to the winemaking, because the more you use chemicals into your vineyards, the more it affects the quality of your wine. But the more you use natural predators into your vineyards, the more your quality becomes better.
Duck Press Pest Control, we hope it can work in other countries. Quite unique, right? We hope it can even work in our nations. And that news brings us to the end of our ambassador, GBS Global News. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. And just to do a recap for you, we've talked about the China-US relations as Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited the nation, that is recently. It was a 3-day trip, and China seemed to be ready with a long list of complaints, which started with Taiwan. They also showcased their military. This was sending a message, even as a warning to US. We hope US caught it. And how will this unfold? We'll keep you updated. And we've also talked about Kenya President William Ruto, who took a first-hand look at the devastation caused by the floods while he visited the Kamuchiri village earlier on Tuesday, that is located in the northwest of Nairobi, which was hard hit by the flood waters after the river breached its banks, resulting in the tragic loss of lives. We'll update you more on the aftermath of the solutions. And we also talked about the ceasefire talks. That seems to be the new talk. Everywhere, US is talking about it, Jordan is talking about it, and Hamas might even take the peace-Israel truce deal. This is good news and hopeful solution and a much anticipation as the world is looking at here. We are looking for a hopeful situation, a solution, an anticipation coming from all of us. We wish them all the best. Well, we are here for you and we'll keep you updated with the latest developments as you keep it at The Ambassador. I've been your ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at The Ambassador GBS Global tomorrow, same time, same place, from Monday to Friday, 8:01 p.m. And may you all have a superb, the most beautiful, and a wonderful afternoon.
Everywhere, GBS.